we spend so much time twisting ourselves in knots about unimportant things. And we just talked about how hideous, I'll use the word hideous, because I literally looked hideous. I mean, I not only had a tomato red face and like crazy witch hair and foggy glasses and bad breath and impacted sinuses and probably throwing in a camel toe in there too. I didn't have anything tied around my waist. But not giving a shit about that is very liberating, because otherwise I'd be embarrassed by my own existence walking down the sidewalk. And I would twist myself in knots, worrying about what do I look like and how red is my face? Is my face coming down? And maybe I should go back to the hotel and take a shower and get this makeup off my face and blow my nose before I get a cup of coffee. And all of that energy, twisting myself around what other people may be thinking, rather than just being okay, not giving a shit. It's so liberating. And I think about that example of for how long I was willing to twist myself into little spaces that didn't fit, and how painful it can be when you hide who you are, when you're embarrassed about what you look like, when you worry about what other people think about what you're wearing. And yet it's also the flip side is when you give a shit about the right things, twisting yourself into spaces like a small tent is an act of joy because it's aligned with what you value. I didn't give a shit how small that little hole was. I had to army crawl my ass in there in order to get in. And then I had to swirl around like a centipede to curl up in there like a little ball, because it was so aligned with my values of wanting to serve, of wanting to bring fun, of wanting to demonstrate something, which was enthusiasm and surprise and celebration and not giving a shit, like being willing to do that kind of stuff. And so, as we kind of continue to go deeper in all these examples of how I'm oblivious at times and how I've worked actually really hard to get to this point of acceptance and this point of focusing on caring about things that I value and trying to completely disregard aspects of life that I just don't give a shit about. That visual of the tent and why it's important to twist yourself when it's about your values versus twisting yourself when it's not, that's really helpful to see. Did I do anything else that day?
Probably.
Probably is probably the right answer, but I don't have any specifics.
Me neither.
And if anyone
I
does.
do. Botox.
Oh, God.
my gosh.
So I got Botox, everybody, in my jaw joint, and I've been going to the same dermatologist for over a decade. I love her. I trust her. She's sensational, and I've been having tremendous pain in my jaw, grinding, trouble eating, and both my primary and my dermatologist was like, you got to get Botox in your jaw. And when she felt my jaw, she's like, holy shit, that's a tense muscle. You're going to have a little extra. And I'm like, okay, as long as you make the pain go away. And she said, well, it could impact your smile. I'm like, I don't care. I can't eat at this point. Just take the pain away. Well, she shot me up. And let me tell you something. It impacted my smile. I look like I'm taking a shit when I have a smile. And this is something that I am self-conscious about. So all week long, as we're in Los Angeles and we did a bunch of interviews, I'm having to really try to manage that my lips are curling up, because if I do a closed smile, try to lip smile like you keep your mouth smiled, my lips suck in like our body language expert warned us about. What's that called? A lip
roll.
A lip roll. I do a lip roll and it looks like I'm frowning. And then if I try to do a big toothy smile, I look like I'm grinding out of shit. Like I'm clenching. And so I had to tell every single expert we had, now look, I'm going to give a kissy face in this, because if I try to give you a smile, I'm going to look like I'm growling at you. And so I now have a week's worth of photos from both graduation week and the podcast where I'm kissing experts and kissing in the air, and I look completely ridiculous. But at least I can chew food and the pain has gone away, but I'm never getting Botox in my jaw again.
But right now, you don't give a shit.
I don't, but it bothers me a little, but I'm trying to direct my attention away from how I look and just go, Mel, it looks like shit, but whatever. What was the CNN story?
Exactly what you said. Can I read to you what some people said to you on CNN?
Wait, you have it?
I do.
Oh my God. She went back in time.
I think a lot of it you remembered, but this is pretty brutal. I have 4 outstanding comments. Let's say that. Your neck is saggy, just like your opinions. It's funny now, but you were probably like, when you got that, right? Like that was probably
really hurt in the beginning.
Yeah, probably
it
hurt.
Sure did.
You should go back to the hole you crawled out of.
It was a deep hole.
Now we know you're an expert on crawling
Out of
into
holes.
small spaces. Yes.
Yep.
Why is someone so ugly on television?
Ouch.
Nice.
Because I'm smarter than you, fuckface.
Okay. The last one. How does a moron like you have a law degree?
I cheated. That's how I know.
That's how to not give a shit.
Well, you know how I learned how to not give a shit is I started to visualize. Empathy helps a lot. So, couple things on other people's opinions. Number one, let's just take a minute and zoom out and have some perspective and imagine what is the life of a person who is sitting on their phone, watching TV nonstop, sounding off at pundits online. What does their life actually look like? I would imagine hypertension. I would imagine a lot of negativity. I'm going to throw in a little alcohol or drug abuse. Probably a small circle of friends. Not getting a lot of sex, I would imagine. Perhaps living in your parents' basement. I would think your bills are piled sky high if that's how you're spending your time. If you truly spend time sounding off at strangers online, your life sucks. Mm-hmm. And so feeling sorry for somebody that cuts you off in traffic, or even like the mean girls. Mean girls are shitty people. You know how insecure they are? If you need a fucking purse and a designer whatever in order to have high self-esteem, you are really fucking insecure. And so I kind of just look at people that are critical of other people, even though I'm being critical of other people, you know, for the sake of humor, with a lot of sympathy. Like, wow, must really suck for you to watch TV and feel so offended or triggered by what I'm saying that you are taking time and energy to not only write about it, but to spread negativity. That's a really awful place to live your life. I hope you find a good therapist at some point and you get the healing you deserve. And so kind of understanding the greater context and not making it about you. Like, I really mean that. Like, I think about like lots of experiences of just mean cliques of people and how they look down on other people. And I literally say to myself, I would hate to be part of that friend group. And one rule of thumb that I think about a lot is this. Like, I think small minds talk about other people. And really cool, big, creative minds talk about ideas. They talk about things. They talk about the future. And that's what I'm interested in. And so when you kind of make it not so personal, that helps a lot. Mm. And when you elevate yourself above the kind of pettiness and the criticism and the negativity that other people might throw at you, it helps me rise above it. And the truth is, you know, there are days I look like shit. And there are days that I probably look like I shouldn't be on TV. And you know what? I don't give a shit. So it helps a lot. It helps a lot because it's mentally healthy to be able to detach. And a lot of your mental health struggles, whether it's anxiety or disconnection or paranoia, it's all a result in many, many, many cases of you being way too concerned about shit out of your control and way too focused on stories that you're telling yourself that aren't even true. And so if anybody's out there gossiping about me, you need to get better hobbies. You really do. If, you're looking down on other people, or notice the next time you go into a social setting and notice how much time is spent talking about people who aren't there. If that's what's happening in your social setting, and it's not a structured conversation around you seeking advice about a situation, which is very different than gossiping. You can seek advice about a situation with another person in your personal life, in your family, or in business, and not have it be gossiping. But if you're engaged in constant banter about other people who aren't present, you need bigger goals. You need to do more with your life, and you need to assess who you're hanging out with, because when they gossip with you, they're going to gossip about you when you leave. That's what those kind of people do. And so it helps to not gossip yourself, because I think gossip is one of those things that you also start giving a shit about things that don't matter. Because gossiping is caring about shit that doesn't matter. And I don't think very successful people or accomplished artists or the greatest entrepreneurs are wasting time giving a shit about gossiping about other people. And I used to be a big gossiper. I can say this with certainty because I used to be that insecure, desperate, clingy, anxious, competitive bitch. And I'm not that person anymore. And gossiping was a big thing in my 20s. It is not part of my life anymore at all. Oh my God. So we just had this team meeting and we were talking about the podcast episodes we're going to tape this week. And one of the topics was the subject of how to not give a shit. And somebody chimed in, well, Mel, you don't give a shit about a lot of things. I'm like, really? What do you mean? What did I do? And then once I respond to their evidence proving to you that I give no shit, I'm going to give you my 4 rules. The 4 rules for how you too can learn how to not give a shit. All right, who wants to go first? What did I do last week, you guys? I'm sitting here going, what the hell did I do? I thought it was a great trip.